know?
I'm at.
Know my land. You do what you told to do, right?
I'll give directions. Good afternoon. Come on now, this is an African American congregation, so we're used to making noise. I'm going to do it again and give you an opportunity to respond a whole lot better. Good afternoon. Great. Welcome. I'm Reverend Dr. J. Lawrence Turner, the senior pastor of Mississippi Boulevard Christian Church Disciples of Christ, as well as the founder and president of the Black Clergy Collaborative of Memphis. I am excited to welcome you not only to this church, but also to this mayoral forum that is collectively presented by the Black Clergy Collaborative of Memphis, 100 Black Men of Memphis, as well as the Ben F. Jones chapter of the National Bar Association. Will you clap your hands for all of the partners who were able to pull this off? We're so grateful for the benefit of technology, and I want to ask those of you who are in this space, if you don't mind going to the Facebook page of Mississippi Boulevard Christian Church right now or to our YouTube channel, and I want you to help me get the word out about this mayoral forum. Would you share it on your page so that those in your network might be able to participate virtually in this experience? And we're grateful for those of you who are already logged on to this mayoral forum, and I hope that you would share from wherever you are. You know, as a kid, we're told that sharing is caring. And so if you care about your city and the leadership of it, I want you as well to share this on your particular page. I want to close this greeting today by recalling a conversation with political analyst and professor of journalism at the University of Memphis, Otis Samford, who said this, that this mayoral race is one of the most important mayoral races in our city's history. And I think we're here today because we know how important that race is. And we're always grateful for those who set themselves forward to not just hold an elected office, but to serve the people of this city. And so I hope that you would pay close attention and that you will participate in making an informed electorate that will select the next leader of the city of Memphis. I want to ask Attorney Corbin Carpenter if he would come now, and he's going to share with us the various parameters that will govern our conversation today. Clap your hands and receive him as he comes.
Good afternoon, everybody. How are you? Welcome to the mayoral forum for the City of Memphis mayoral race. I have the pleasure of introducing our moderator, Corey Strong. I do serve as the vice chair for 100 Black Men of Memphis. And to introduce our moderator, Corey Strong is a community leader who has made an impact in the civic, political, and education spaces. Born and raised in Memphis, he spent 8 years on active duty as a surface warfare officer in the United States Navy. Corey returned home to continue a service in Memphis. He has worked in the education space for over 6 years, holding leadership positions at Memphis Shelby County Schools, Freedom Preparatory Academy, the Workforce Nonprofit Progeny Place, and he is the current Director of Partnerships for the Early Childhood Education Organization, First Aid Memphis. He is a former chairman of the Shelby County Democratic Party and helped lead the 2018 Blue Wave election and was elected committeeman to the Tennessee Democratic Party Executive Committee in 2014. Corey still serves his country in the Navy Reserves, where he was recently selected for promotion to the rank of captain, is a founding member of the Alumni Advisory Council for the Broad Center at the Yale School of Management, and serves as a board member of Restore Corps, a nonprofit organization which combats human trafficking. A U.S. Naval Academy graduate, Corey also holds a master's in business from San Diego State University, a Juris Doctorate from University of Memphis School of Law, and a master's of education leadership from the Broad Center at the Yale School of Management. Ladies and gentlemen, your moderator for the evening, Corey Strong.
Good afternoon, everyone. How's everybody doing today? So looking forward to a lively debate today. We are going to get kicked off in introductions. I first wanted to go over kind of the fact that we had some objective metrics to select the candidates today. I want to applaud them because of the 6 candidates who met those objective criteria. 4 of them are sitting on stage. So I want to thank all of you for being here. And I can tell you, for those of you that are making your decisions, this is Corey Strong's personal editorial. If your candidates aren't going to talk to you when they're running for office, they certainly aren't going to talk to you once they get elected. And so I appreciate these candidates for being here today. So for this debate, we call it a forum, but I'm going to qualify to say we are now past the filing deadline. These candidates have qualified. We're roughly 6 weeks out from early vote. So to be clear, this is prime time to get serious about who is going to be our next leader. And so one difference today from some of the previous forums that you have probably watched and attended is the candidates will get to address each other's platforms in their allotted time if that's what they desire to do. And so hopefully we get a good spirited debate and we get to learn a little bit more about each one of these 4 leaders who have all really established themselves as community leaders here in Memphis. And so we will get started off with the introductions. I'm gonna let each candidate introduce themselves and they all have 90 seconds to do so. We did a hat draw prior to, a little number draw beforehand to decide our order today. And so we're going to start off with Mrs. Michelle McKissick. And so you have 90 seconds.
Good afternoon. I'm Michelle McKissick, and I'm so delighted to be with you this afternoon. First, I'll start with telling you a little bit about myself. I'm from Memphis, born and raised, grew up in a neighborhood called Cherokee. Can you hear me okay, by the way? Sounds good. So Cherokee is right next door to Orange Mound. And from there, I went on to graduate from Memphis City Schools, and I attended Northwestern University, where I received my bachelor's and master's degrees in journalism and urban studies. And that's where I also met my sweetie, my college sweetheart. We've been married almost 30 years now. And then we went on to have 4 children, one of whom is still enrolled in our public schools. And they are the reason that got me to where I am today, being invested in our young people. I was elected to the school board in 2018. I've been serving there and working toward trying to make it better for the 110,000 students that we serve and all their families. And so that's why I'm now running for mayor. We've got our challenges here in Memphis for sure, but I believe in our promise, I believe in our potential, and I believe in our ability to make it better. I am running to be the next mayor of Memphis because we need leadership that we've never seen before. I want to help us believe bigger, to act bigger, to do better for our city, to do better by everyone in our community, to make it safer, to help entrepreneurs invest more into them, and to help us as a community to believe bigger so that we can reach the full potential for Memphis. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Van Turner. I'm running to be the next mayor of Memphis, and I would appreciate your vote. I was born in Whitehaven, USA, and from Whitehaven, I attended Morehouse College. From Morehouse College, I taught English in Japan for 2 years in Tsurushi, Yamanashi-ken, Japan. Learned many lessons while I was overseas, and I was able to see America from other eyes. I left Tokyo, Japan, and attended the University of Tennessee College of Law, where I obtained my law degree, and I moved back home in 2002 and began practicing law. The three issues that we're going to have to deal with are crime, infrastructure, and jobs. It's going to take strong leadership to resolve these issues, and it's going to take someone with a proven track record of getting the tough jobs done. From taking down Confederate monuments to defending Mason, Tennessee, to standing up for the family of Tyree Nichols, I fought when you needed me to fight, and I'll continue to fight as your next mayor. Proven track record of getting the tough jobs done. I went all around the world and came right back to South Memphis, Whitehaven, to meet my wife. I met her when she and I were 14 years old. I asked her to go with me. She circled yes, and I want you to circle yes to me being your next mayor. Again, proven track record of getting the tough jobs done. Memphis is a tough job, and you're going to need an experienced leader to get it done. Thank you very much.
Hello, everyone. My name is Paul Young, and I am running to be your mayor. I'm a born and raised Memphian. I grew up in the Oak Haven area. I graduated from East High School, went to college at University of Tennessee, Knoxville, where I secured a degree in electrical engineering, and then I came back home. And many have heard me tell this story, and I'll tell it again. When I came back home, I was still trying to figure out what to do. I'm a brother of Kappa Alpha Psi, and I had fraternity brothers that were living all over the country. And I had the opportunity to hear my mom preach, Bishop William and Diane Young over at the Healing Center. My mom is here now. Pastor Young was preaching, and she had a sermon called The Purpose-Driven Life. And in that sermon, what she said drove my career from that point forward. She said that God's purpose for your life will never be about you. God's purpose for your life will always be about someone else. And I decided that I wanted to apply that to my career. I decided that I wanted to figure out how I can help rebuild neighborhoods and communities throughout this city, because I looked at the neighborhood I grew up in, Oak Haven, and I saw more houses vacant, more businesses gone. And I wanted to figure out how do we reverse that for our community. I decided to enroll in city and regional planning at the University of Memphis, and I became a city planner. I also secured a master's in real estate. MBA in real estate and finance. And so what I've done for the past 20 years is work to rebuild neighborhoods. I have a track record of success. I am currently the president of Downtown Memphis Commission, previously served as the director of housing. I've worked in every neighborhood in this city. There are projects that you've seen come up that you probably don't know the name Paul Young was behind it. If you drive down East Parkway, you see Liberty Park, the new sports facility. If you drive down Tillman, you see Tillman Cove, the new affordable housing apartments coming up. In Raleigh, you see Raleigh Town Center, and the list goes on. But right now, we have an opportunity. We have an opportunity to elect someone who's ready to do the work, who's not running for political purposes, but running to get the job done. And that's what you get when you get Paul Young. Thank you.
It's always a pleasure to be in the house of the Lord. And to that, I say to Mississippi Boulevard Christian Church and the organizing entities that put this event together, thank you so much for organizing this debate. I am J.W. Gibson, a native Memphian, born in Dixie Homes housing projects, raised in South Memphis. I am a veteran, a business owner of 3 diverse businesses that I started from scratch. Each one of those businesses, I had no prior experience in the industry. And the first one I started in my mom's garage. I'm a former county commissioner, and I honestly believe that the challenged life that I led has uniquely made me prepared to become your next city mayor. Because a lot of those similar trials and tribulations that I went through and coming up, we're facing now here in the city of Memphis. And again, I believe I'm uniquely qualified to be your mayor. So I ask for your support. Thank you. Thanks for being engaged.
Okay, let's get into it. I'm gonna try with each of these questions to set some framing, give a little research background, educate the audience as we talk about these issues. But the first issue I'm gonna talk about needs no framing. I'm not gonna give no pre-order, I'm going right into it. How do each of you as candidates plan to engage with MLG&W and get the money to repair our dilapidated infrastructure? So MLG&W, what are you going to do about it? And so we are going to start with Van. Yep.
That's a mouthful. And so with MLG&W, we have aged infrastructure, and that's the issue. With the freeze of this past December, we found that our pipes were not buried low enough to withstand the freeze that occurred. What we're seeing now, torrential storms that we haven't experienced before in this community, storms which can pick up metal poles and lay them across the street. And so what we have to do is prepare for these storms because we know the storms will come. We have to reinforce our rotted poles, which maintain the wire system. We have to make sure that we do that when the storms are not here, knowing that the storms will come. We also have to cut back the brush and make sure that we're taking care of that situation as well so they won't fall and drop on the power lines. There's federal funding, there's money to where we can equip our communities with solar panels so that when power goes down, we're able to use solar energy to support our system that's failed. We also need to designate community centers and churches in our communities as centers where individuals can go when their power is out, their food is rotting, and they have issues, they need medicine, they need health care. And so we could have these community centers and churches situated to assist communities where we know there's a need and they need assistance. Also for our ill and for our veterans and for our elderly, we need to supply them with generators.
Mr. Young?
Yeah. So MLGW is a city-owned utility, and so we have to obviously work very, very closely with them. The thing that we have to ensure is that people remember this moment when it's time to debate about paying for the solutions. Because for many, many years, MLGW has proposed upgrades to the system, and they were voted down. In 2018, they were approved to make about $1 billion worth of improvements. And so some of those improvements are happening, but there's much more that still needs to be done. What they need to do is what they call harden the system. So right now, what you're seeing happen, you have a lot of utilities that are on poles, and these poles are snapping as a result of the vicious weather that we're seeing because of climate change. And so we have to invest in being able to either take those lines underground or use steel poles instead of the cheaper wooden ones. That's something that we have to do, number one. Number two, we need to be thinking about a smart grid. What does that mean? With a smart grid, MLGW automatically knows when the utilities go out. When it goes out, right now there are a lot of different ways that your power comes to your house. It comes from different directions. When it goes out, it can take another path to get to your home. So instead of it taking 10 hours for the utilities to come back on, it'll take 3 minutes. Those are the kinds of common sense upgrades that we have to be willing and ready to invest in for our future.
Thank you very much. So from my perspective, it really starts from years ago. The issues that we're dealing with today comes from the lack of maintenance being done at the appropriate time in a timely manner. Those poles that Paul Young talked about, they're old, decrepit poles that are cracking by wind. If we had done our job with doing the proper maintenance, we would have either exchanged those wooden poles with new poles or put up steel poles. The fact of the matter, not only the poles, but a lot of the infrastructure maintenance has not been done over years. And we need to first rectify how we'll go about aligning Memphis Light, Gas, and Water with the City of Memphis, because again, it is a city division that ought to have some oversight, some input from the city. Today, they're running on their own. Well, let me step back, because today, since Doug McGowan has gone over, he's actually brought Memphis Like Gas and Water to the table there at City Hall. And the conversations are starting to happen together as a unit. So I applaud him for that work. But that's where we really need to focus our attention, on how we work collaboratively together in order to build a stronger infrastructure that we all can count on through rain, sleet, or snow. It should be there for us. Our public utility company should be there for us. Thank you.
Ms. McKissick?
First of all, it is absolutely unacceptable. We didn't have this when I was growing up, and all of you can relate to that. But we, as a community, we have already invested in MLGW. It was approved over 2 years ago, $1.2 billion for upgrades to our infrastructure. We are already 2 years behind in that. Part of it, you can blame it on COVID, but I also know that when the bridge was cracked, also during COVID, it was expedited like something we've never seen. Because why? It wasn't just an emergency, it was a dire emergency. We are in a dire situation here right now. The elderly, people who depend on electricity, if you have at-home dialysis or a CPAP or whatever the case may be, this isn't just an inconvenience. We have got to make this priority number one, and it has to be vision. Because though Mr. McGowan may be new to the problem, new to the role, he's not new to the problem. We've been dealing with this for some years now. So we have to be aggressive in attacking this, just as the bridge was fixed with the state. We can fix this as a community. The money has already been invested in. And also, there's much more money that we can go after. There's actually some grants that the Tennessee State Department Environmental Consciousness, they had a grant that MLGW said, we've got enough money. You want to find the article? Just Google it in the Daily Memphian. It's there. So that's the sort of leadership that we need, someone who can work with MLGW, but provide more oversight, but not accept any more excuses. Thank you.
Well, clearly, it is a priority, and we are looking forward to a solution here shortly. So, moving on, infrastructure and housing, we'll move to housing. According to the National Fair Housing Alliance, Memphis has what they refer to as limited code enforcement, with a lack of sustained fair housing enforcement and serious issues with renters' rights. If you notice, over the past 3 to 5 years, Memphis has been one of the hottest real estate markets in the country, but that has been because of a bull run on purchasing homes by out-of-town investors, which exacerbates this issue. So out-of-town people you can't get in contact with, and renters are continuing to see issues with that. How do you plan to turn around our issues with housing and renters' rights and our code enforcement in Memphis? And so I'll start with you.
Yeah, so this is a major issue, and it's one that I dealt with when I was Director of Housing and Community Development. What other communities have done, and I think this is something that we should explore in our community, is they have extended the wait period for those out-of-town investors. What's been happening in our community is you have individuals who are ready to buy a home in a community like Fraser who are competing with investors that tell them, I will give you all cash and close in 10 days. And so if you're, someone, a normal person that has to go through a bank and you got to go through different contingencies, you're going to lose out every time. And so what other communities have done is they've extended the wait period to say, well, you can't just close in 10 days. We're going to say that you must close in at least 30 to 45 days to put you on par with an average person. And so those are common sense ways that we can address the crisis. The other thing that we need to do is invest in programs like what I put together at Housing and Community Development, the Eviction Settlement Fund. This is where we made dollars available to tenants that were being evicted. And instead of them just getting dollars, we also gave them legal representation. It was a project that was something that hadn't been done in this country. These individuals now went to court with representation, the landlord made their money, and the tenant kept a quality place to live. And so those are the types of ideas that we need to expand and grow to help the tenants and the renters in our community.
Thank you. Mr. Gibson?
So here I think we have a multitude of opportunities before us. One of the things I shared with a group of realtors a couple of weeks ago that they seem to be quite excited about. The fact that out-of-towners are coming into Memphis and buying a property like crazy. There's a program, there's an opportunity similar to what I was able to create as a county commissioner by which we give local realtors and CDCs an opportunity to procure those same properties at a discount. The program that we had at the county, and it's still alive, it's a local-owned small business initiative. Again, it gives those local-owned businesses an opportunity to procure from county government at a discounted price. If you attach that format for the acquisition of properties, I think you will see quite a few realtors be able to pick up on those properties and close in a timely manner because of the added discount being offered to them. There's going to be an opportunity for not-for-profit CDCs within the communities to work hand-in-hand with realtors to take these vacant properties within their inner city and redevelop, build more, build stronger, create an opportunity for home ownership, and also there's an opportunity for the register for these out-of-town landlords. All of those processes and opportunities have to be realized and taken advantage of it. It's not a one-answer situation. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. McKissick?
Thank you. So when it comes to housing and how is this cyclical problem of rental houses and those investors coming in from out of town. I was just in a meeting this morning with some community leaders out in Southeast Memphis, and they were talking about they are calling for a registry. Unless you really know and you dig deep into it, you don't know who these people are who are owning these homes, who aren't keeping them up, who are treating their tenants like second-class citizens. So that's something I would love to work with not only the city level, but the state level for a registry for landlords so that we can know who to go to when there's a problem. And then the next issue is home ownership. People who are renting apartments, and I was one of them, on paper, I absolutely looked like I could afford a home. I was paying the same in rent. I did not know where to go to begin that process for home ownership. The City of Memphis can work with educating potential homeowners, renters in communities from Southeast Memphis to Frazier to help them understand that you absolutely do not have to rent. You can be owning a home for the exact same amount of money. So education is big. Thank you.
Mr. Turner?
So as you indicated, Mr. Strong, in your question, you talked about code. And so if you know anything about the housing industry and real estate here, you have code. When you have to redo your home or you want to build a new home, you call code and they have to come and inspect the house. But also code has a number of other uses. It can determine who gets the property, who builds, what restrictions will be placed on the property. So I think we could and should tweak our city code ordinances to make sure that out-of-town buyers are not coming in and just using our properties for their financial benefit where it hurts and harms those who are living here and raising their families here. Two, we have to make sure that we lean into what we already have. We have a city court that's part of the City of Memphis. Why not create a Division 4 city court and make that the tenants court? And in issues where we have veterans, those who are disabled and elderly, who are in need of fair housing and adequate housing, let them go to a city court Division 4, tenants court, and let a judge and let someone chime in on that issue and give parity and equity to these families who are being harmed. People shouldn't be kicked out on the street because of where they are and where life circumstances have led them if they want to do better. Finally, we have to make sure that when businesses come here and they want incentives, they want to have a tax deferment, we ought to make them do something about helping us with housing as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Obviously, if we're going to have a vibrant city, people have to have a place to live. And so looking forward to seeing some of these, obviously, options being put into play. Last question about infrastructure. We've talked about MLG&W. There's been a lot of work and growth downtown around the city to build up the infrastructure we have to host events and bring people to our city. A big part of that is contracts. Who's doing the building, right? Full transparency, the current administration has had a bit of a misstep when it talks about minority contracting to actually help build that infrastructure, okay? Meanwhile, in Birmingham, Birmingham's mayor has pledged a $100 million investment in minority contracts in the city of Birmingham. So he said I'm doing it, right? What is a concrete commitment that each of you will make to ensure that we have substantive minority contracts as a part of rebuilding our infrastructure? What are we going to do to make sure that minorities are a part, the majority minority city we are in is a part of rebuilding our infrastructure? Mr. Gibson.
So there's a couple of things that we could do. I continue to go back to the opportunity that we presented as a county commissioner, by which we allow for local-owned small businesses to have a preference in their opportunity to bid for jobs and take advantage of those opportunities. You will see a significant increase in the amount of business that's being awarded to those local small business. And some people will argue the fact, well, that's for all small business. I will submit to you, as alluded to by Mr. Strong, the population here in Memphis is majority us. So at the end of the day, because it is majority us, it would be the majority of us that will be applying for those discount pricing when you go towards bidding on jobs. As the mayor, you have to make some tough decisions. You have to set forth the platform in which procurement operates. You have to set goals. I will set not maybe $100 million like Alabama did, but we would set something similar that would show our sincerity as it relates to ensuring the minority-owned businesses are a part of the redevelopment of not only downtown Memphis, but other parts of the city of Memphis. That commitment has to start at the top, because the top has the authority and the power. And we will send that message loud and clear from day one, that we are about the business of ensuring minority participation.
Well, first, I do believe we have to believe bigger. Why can't we invest that $100 million? I think that right there is starting with the mindset. If Birmingham can do it, certainly Memphis, which is much bigger, we can be a part of that growth. Also, partnering with the Black Business Alliance. I think sometimes when you start with just the top down, that's where part of the problem is. You go to the people who are on the ground right there who need the support. And we're not just talking about technical support. They need cash. I was talking to another business owner this morning, and he was talking about how he has plans to open a credit union. Something that the city of Memphis could do, just simply opening a checking account. Google just did this. They opened just checking accounts and found various banks, Black-owned banks. Right there, it scaled them to an entirely different level. That's the type of out-of-the-box thinking we have to do. The city of Memphis absolutely has the ability and the power to raise the threshold of what their MWBE percentages are going to be. We have to go into this with that intention, but we can't do it by saying, this is something that I want to do. We need to talk to the business owners who need it most. And as a daughter of an entrepreneur, I know what that life looks like. Sometimes it's feast, sometimes it's famine. We need to be supporting small businesses, which are the lifeblood of our communities. Thank you.
Mr. Turner?
So on my first term as a county commissioner, there was a $100 million deal that came to the county, and it was the inmate health care contract, and there was no minority participation on that contract. And instead of raising my voice and going crazy in front of the TV, what I did was put forth a moratorium. And the moratorium simply said, if you're not going to spend business, if you're not going to spend dollars with Black businesses in this community, then we're not going to spend any money, period. We're going to shut it all down. That's how serious we are. And that got the job done. We rebidded that project, and it came back with minority and women business-owned participation. That's the type of leadership that you would expect from me and can expect from me as your next mayor. Someone that's going to put their foot down and say to businesses and say to this community, if we are the majority of this community, then we need our fair share for our businesses to be supported and to survive in this community as well. Also, with our MWBE program, we got to understand the Supreme Court is not our friend. They just outlawed affirmative action. They're coming for these programs. So we have to be smart now, and we have to put in the process now. Disadvantaged business enterprises, veteran enterprises, there are ways that you can work around what they're doing because they're coming for these programs. And we have to be smart, and we have to work around it. And finally, we have to make sure that our minority and women-owned businesses are partnering with larger businesses so they can scale up. Thank you.
Yeah. So Memphis was recently named the largest black city in the country. And our goal has to be to ensure that that's a positive, because we know what that narrative often carries. Usually you're known as the crime-ridden city or the poor city. We want it to be synonymous with black wealth. And the way that we do that is to increase our standards. So from a city perspective right now, I think we target about 20% on our contracts. Why not 30? Why not 40? And I want to do the type of work that I've been doing at Housing and Community Development and at DMC. When we meet with developers and contractors, when we talk to them about their MWBE requirements, what we say is 25% is the floor. That's where we're starting. That is not the ceiling. And that's why you see 44% participation on projects like the $42 million mobility center that's being completed over the next month. It's because we set the flag in the ground and we say this is where we're going. And we can't just stop with our city projects, because like it or not, that's not where all the wealth is. All the wealth is in the business community. Only 1% of business is being done with black business in this city. And so we have to change that. And as mayor, I have to plant the flag in the ground and say, if you want to change crime, if you want to change what's happening in your neighborhoods and the community, you must engage black businesses. That's the only way we change the trajectory of our city. And I have to plant that flag for the business owners to see. And then the last thing I'll say is, we shouldn't just be talking about percentages on construction projects. We should be talking about ownership. What about black ownership? So when you come into Downtown Memphis Commission with a project, we're not just saying we want you to get this percentage. We're saying we want to make sure we have a high percentage of ownership on the end goal so we get that mailbox income.
Thank you. Thank you. We certainly have to make sure as a majority-minority city that there is participation by the majority of the citizens, because that is the direction the city is going to go in. So we'll transition to another current event topic that has been on everyone's mind. We got some issues with crimes. And so I'm going to start with somewhere specific. Memphis violent crime rate has increased over the last 17 years, but specifically, vehicle thefts have skyrocketed by 155%. I think everybody's aware of it. Every time you look on your social media, somebody says they got me. And so that's a significant problem people are concerned about, okay? As mayor, what is your plan to ensure Memphians feel safe? And how are you going to ensure that offenders, particularly repeat offenders, are held accountable? Mr. McKissick.
So focusing on car theft, is that?
Car theft is the framing, but any repeat offenders, how are you going to hold them accountable?
Right, thank you. So I just had a meeting with Memphis Police about a couple of weeks ago, and they were talking about how can we go about preventing this and having these conversations. And something that I thought was very interesting, a lot of people now have door ring cameras that they can tap into, but what they would like for you to do is to register them with the Memphis Police. Not that they're looking at your cameras, but that is a way for them to utilize all these door ring cameras that are around the city that can capture that, but they don't know if they don't know where to go to look for them. So that's one thing I thought was an innovative idea. But as far as crime in general and violent crime, this is certainly a challenge for us. The FBI says only 1 in 5 crimes here in Memphis is actually solved. So I have a plan called Whole City Memphis Safety Plan, where I focus on the 3 Ps. The 3 Ps being crime prevention, then partnering with police, and then providing justice. And by partnering with justice, or partnering with police rather, I want to focus on that, is that we need to get our police force back up to scale. Because right now we are understaffed, but not just with patrol officers, but with detectives and investigators, because they are the ones that solve crimes. Those other 4 crimes that have not been solved, that's what we need to get back to. And then of course, with crime prevention, that's investing in our young people. Investing in them, not just policing them, but giving them the opportunity. Then finally, providing justice, we need bail reform. Thank you.
So 25% of crime, all crime in Tennessee, they say comes out of Shelby County. And so if that is the case, why was the crime lab removed out of Shelby County and taken to Madison County? It makes no sense. We need a crime lab back here in Shelby County to make sure that we're processing the DNA evidence and to make sure that our prosecutors have what they need to put our most violent offenders away for as long as possible. First thing I'll do is support a new crime lab. I won't study it. $300,000 is going to study that project. We need it. We need a crime lab. Studying is over with. Also, we need to get the officers back on the beat because we need to get back to community policing. We're down about 500 officers. We need to get to the scenario where our officers know the community and the community knows our officers, and that will assist in crime remediation. Finally, at Craigmont High School, the Boys and Girls Club, which was placed in Craigmont, basically has 100% graduation rates. That's opposed to about a 73 graduation rate of those young people who are not in the Boys and Girls Club. We know it works. First, we need suppression, more officers. We need to make sure that you feel safe and that we are safe. Next, we need intervention. Those young people can go left or right. We have to make sure we're beating the streets and we're outpacing what's going on in these communities and get our young people going in the right direction with examples such as the Boys and Girls Club. Finally, 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade reading levels. If we make sure that our kids are on grade for reading, we can stop truancy and stop dropout rates, and that also will assist with crime remediation. Thank you.
Yeah. So when it comes to crime in our community, I think it's twofold. One, we got to hold people accountable. Those folks that are out here terrorizing our neighborhoods and communities, they must be brought to justice. And once they're brought to justice, they must stay in the justice system. And hopefully they go into a criminal justice system that's focused on reform. My job as mayor is make sure we're getting them off the streets because there is too much fear in our communities right now. It's been feeling so heavy and so dark. And the way we do that is we support our officers. We root out the bad ones. We support the good ones. We make sure that they're being efficient with their time. One example of a time suck that I know that's happening is when you have an officer arrest someone, they go down to 201 Poplar, and it takes them 3 hours to process the paperwork. 3 hours. So that officer has to sit there for 3 hours. That's time that they could be out on the streets. We have to find more efficiency so that they can do the work that we need them to be doing. The other thing that we need is a mayor that's going to plant a flag in the ground and say, this is where we're all going, collectively. No more finger pointing. We got to bring the district attorney, the judges. Everybody has to be at the table. During the pandemic, we had conference calls every week talking about the level of the virus in our community. And there was people from all across the board. We need that level of alarm right now. Everybody needs to be at the table talking about solutions because we cannot go on this way, and I will be the mayor that changes that trajectory.
Mr. Gibson?
So, crime is a very, very serious issue. And I must first say to you emphatically that it's not just the MPD's problem. This is a community-wide problem. And as mayor, I have 5 points of interest that we want to initiate. And each one of those areas we have opportunity to dig deeper. But the 5 points of interest, first would be the calling of a crime commission within the first 100 days of my administration. We will bring the best and the smartest minds locally and nationally to the table. Similar to what we did back in the day when we had a summit around business development and Memphis became recognized nationally as the logistics center for the United States. We will also serve, number 2, as an advocate to ensure tougher and stiffer crimes around sentencing and bailing. 3, we will restore trust between the neighborhoods and the police officers. 4, we will hire more officers and we will invest in crime-fighting technology. And 4th, we will commit to saving our kids and providing opportunities to keep them out of trouble. Again, each one of those 5 different areas have opportunities for us to dig deeper and really plug in to the issues, be it wraparound service, be it after-school service, be it tougher on crime, all of that, we will have an opportunity to dig deeper. But it started with bringing the best and the brightest minds collectively to the table to work together.
So, we know there are some problems with crime. These are all great examples of how we would address it and be more aggressive about the problem. But Memphis and Shelby County has also had some recent missteps by law enforcement officers where we have violated some of the rights of our citizens, and that's something we cannot do. And so how would you balance being aggressive about crime, understanding that the community is concerned, there is an issue of fear, but with also keeping the law enforcement that you are responsible for as chief executive accountable when they step outside of the bounds? How do you balance those two, and how would you balance those two as mayor? So, Mr. Turner.
Well, when Tyree Nichols was murdered, that was something that you hated to see. And as we think about it, as a father of a 17-year-old and 15-year-old son, every time they go out, you just think and pray that they make it back safely. As a parent, you feel that in your gut. And when you saw Tyree Nichols beat to death, what went in your mind and minds of mothers and fathers and brothers and sisters was, that could have been my child. And so we have to make sure that we are rooting out those bad officers. We have to make sure that there's proper training, there's proper leadership. We have to make sure that when these officers are on those kinds of task force, there's an opportunity for them to decompress and move away from those type of on those task committees, which are so intense that they need some time to decompress. They need psychological evaluations to make sure that they're still capable and able of serving on those kinds of police forces and on those kinds of task forces. And so what we would do is we would ensure that leadership is there, we would ensure that training is there, and we would make sure that going forward, if there is even an instance where we think the officer may be violent, that officer is immediately removed. There's a psychological evaluation before that officer gets back on the force, and we want to make sure that we are exercising preventive care before something like that happens again. The city of Memphis is going to have to pay out a pretty penny for what happened to Tyree Nichols, and we should, but we have to make sure that we don't ever see that happen again in our community.
Yeah, so shortly after the Tyree Nichols tragedy took place, I encountered an officer who knew me through a mutual friend, and he stopped me and he said, "Man, look me in my eyes right now. Look at me in my eyes. I want you to hear me say this. We hate what we just saw. We hate what we saw on this video. That is not who we are." This is coming from one of the officers. This is not who we are. We hate that. So that subculture that we saw play out, most officers aren't engaged in that. But those that are making it harder for him. He said, "Man, I feel like I got a target on my back right now. I'm scared. My mental is messed up." This is from him. And so we owe it to those officers to make sure that we root out that subculture. So those that have citizen complaints, obviously we're going to check the validity, but if you have 5 or 6 complaints on you, something is wrong. We need to have a deeper investigation and figure out if this is really what you're cut out to do. We need to have the proper training for our officers. We need to have the proper oversight. We need to make sure they're getting the mental health resources that they need. Because think about the trauma that they're seeing every day. They're seeing people in our public at their worst a lot of times. And it's impacting who they are. We have to make sure that we are investing in those officers and investing in their mental so that they respect the people in our community.
Thank you. Mr. Gibson.
Okay, so for me, I'm one of those people, instead of a lot of sound bites, I like to try to understand the root of the issue. One of the biggest problems that we have with our police officers is, if you think back a few years ago when their pay and their pension was challenged, it did something terrible to their morale in the police department. These guys didn't want to come to work. These guys didn't want to put their lives on the line every day because they didn't feel as if they were being respected. That's a huge issue, but it's not an example, but it's not an excuse, is what I should have said. But it is a part of the reasoning that the morale is low and they do some of the things that they do. We truly have got to put in place better training and better supervising to ensure that these guys aren't capable of running rogue as those 5 officers did. If you recall back to that day, it took quite a while for the supervising officer to show up on the scene. We have got to improve training, we have got to improve accountability, and we do have officers out there who respect you as an individual. They respect their job as protecting officers. They want to see a department that's more accountable. And we're going to make them more accountable by making sure that the top throughout the whole system is responsible and accountable for what they do when it comes to protecting you.
Thank you. Ms. McKissick?
As the mother of 3 sons, Peter, James, and John, they're 20, 21, and 25, for my husband and I, it was a constant concern about their safety. And I remember meeting with Tyree Nichols' mother, and we shared in that because one of my sons was a big-time skateboarder as well. And she said, Michelle, what can we do as a community? We have to restore trust. You can't do anything without that trust. And I believe that means getting back into communities. Growing up, I used to go to my godmother's house in Westwood, and there was the Westwood COAC unit there by the swimming pool, and we would walk down to the swimming pool there, and she felt completely fine because she knew when we got there, there was Officer Friendly waiting there for us, and she felt that we would be safe. So that's the type of thing that we have to get back into. And also, while we're at it, the training for police officers. For every 80 hours of gun training that they get 4 hours of cultural sensitivity training. That's where the disconnect is. We have to help officers get reconnected to communities. When you rebuild that trust, and it goes both ways, that's how we can continue to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. So, one more quick question, and this is 30 seconds on this one. Just a quick, do you or do you not support it? We talked about kind of the crime. A lot of that crime is coming from youth. Tennessee parents can be fined and even jailed if a child is truant and misses schools, right? A lot of these crimes that have been committed are being committed by youth. And we're putting a lot of emphasis on what we do about the youth, but we're not really talking about parents. And so really quickly, would you support fining or jailing parents of minors who are involved in crime? So not just truant to school. If your child is involved in crime, would you support, as a mayor, either fining or jailing those parents? Where were you, Mr. Young?
I would support it, but the law would have to be crafted in a way where we're giving a number of opportunities for that parent to get it right before we take the...
Right now under law, I'm saying, would you support that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I do, as long as they have had opportunities to get it right.
Tracking. Mr. Gibson.
So, Brother Strong, I know you for a long time, and I trust your word. That's a really such touchy matter. I have to see the law. In theory, I do support the notion that parents should be more accountable and held accountable for their children's activities. If the law really supports it and is constitutional, yes, I will go strong on the parents as well.
Ms. McKissick.
I'm not for policing poverty, because a lot of this is born out of poverty. But is there a violent crime? Absolutely, for a violent crime without question. But there are so many factors, it's hard to make a yes or no, but yes, if it's a violent crime.
Okay. Mr. Turner?
I would say yes, but here's what I know. There's diversion and there are other opportunities in the courts to allow individuals to get it right if they can get it right. So what many times people want a hard and fast answer. If the parents are not willing to comply, not willing to engage, not willing to make sure that their young people are doing right, then yes. But I think you have a step 1, a step 2, and a step 3 before we get there. And we start with mediation and diversion and other tactics to make sure that we are teaching parents how to parent and allowing them to get it right before we put them in jail or fine them.
Okay, we got to follow the law, but some parents start getting your kids to school. Okay. We're going to move to a rapid fire round, and when you're in these mayoral campaign seasons for executive office and kind of these important positions, frequently there's this very, very, very heavy, kind of solemn, serious, important issues. But we thought it was important to make sure that we know the candidates and we understand a little bit about who's going to be leading our city. So we're going to take the opportunity in a rapid fire round to actually learn a little bit about each of our candidates, kind of understand where they sit with Memphis. And so we're going to throw a little curveball at each of them that was not on the previously mentioned subjects, but we're going to see where y'all go with this, okay? So we're going to start off from the top. Most important question, 30 seconds. Start with you, Mr. Gibson. What's your favorite Memphis barbecue spot?
Barbecue shop. Barbecue shop.
What's your favorite barbecue?
Barbecue shop on Madison.
The barbecue shop? Okay. Ms. McKissick.
Ooh, that's tough here in Memphis. I'm going to go with Cozy Corner.
Okay.
Cozy Corner. I remember meeting Mr. Robinson when I was a young reporter, and my maiden name is Robinson, and it's some good ribs.
Okay. Cozy Corner. Ms. Turner.
A&R, South Memphis and Hickory Hill.
Okay. All right. See, we got some A&R in that. Okay. Okay.
I'm going to go with Cozy Corner, too, for their Cornish hen.
Okay. Cozy Corner. All right. It looks like Cozy Corner won. So no No Central, no one and only, no. None. That's okay. I'll put this. Okay, they're all good. All right, we checking now. We got to make sure where you at. Okay. Second question. Two answers to this. Who is your favorite? And we'll start with you, Ms. McKissick. Who's your favorite all-time and then current Grizzlies player? All right, we on the record now. So the all-time and then who's your favorite current Grizzly player?
Okay, all-time.
So you get two. Who's your all-time favorite and then who's your right now on the current team favorite player?
This was a little bit untraditional, but I'm going to go with Shane Battier.
Okay.
He was,
some Shane Battier in the
yeah,
audience. Okay.
the nicest man and would spend time with my son. So that was good. And current, I got to go with Ja Morant. I think he's just extremely talented, and he's young, and there's lots of room for growth emotionally.
Okay, we can support the brother. That's fine. Okay, Mr. Turner.
I'll go with the two guards, Mike Conley and Ja Morant.
Okay. All right.
Zach Randolph, Ja Morant.
Zebo, Ja Morant. Okay. Got some Zebo in the room. Okay, got it. Ms. Gibson.
Zebo and Bain.
Desmond Bain. Okay, got a Desmond Bain in the mix. Okay, I like it. Okay, we're going to stay here. Keep it mixing. I'm coming to you, Mr. Turner. All right. Who is your favorite Memphis hip-hop artist? You got to give me. I don't know Al Green. This is a new city. We got new citizens. We got for the young kids, hip-hop, you got to give me somebody.
So when we were in 8th grade, gangster walking at Havenview, we did it to 8 Ball and MJG.
Okay, I suppose.
That's why I am.
We can go with all time. All right. Okay. Can't go wrong with 8 Ball, MJG, Lil T, Lil Houston. Okay. Go ahead, Mr. Young.
Got to go with A-Ball, and then for the new generation, I say NLE Chopper. He's an amazing
Lil
young dude.
NLE. Okay, that's fine. We'll give you both. Okay. Ms. Gibson, come on.
Old school, Al Capone. New school, Gorilla.
Ooh, okay. Al Capone the Gorilla. That was a good pull. Okay. Mr. McKissick, we know you listen to rap. Come on.
My kids do. Actually, and this is artists who I've actually recently met and have come to really love. Glorilla.
Okay, Glorilla in the building. Glorilla's getting a lot of awards and everything, a lot of things, bringing Memphis up to the front. I like it. Okay. I'm going to give y'all a little pause to think about this one. It's a little bit different, right? But again, we're trying to get into the mind of who you are, okay? Movie about your life, who would you have play you in a movie about your life? Mr. Young.
Morgan Freeman, because hopefully my life is long. So.
All right, Morgan Freeman. You a little old to play you? You just
Because I'm going to live that long.
Okay. There you go. You projecting a long life. All right, Mr. Gibson.
Sidney Poitier.
Okay. See, can't go wrong with Sidney. Okay. All right. Ms. McKissick.
Let's see here. I'm going to go with Kerry Washington.
Okay. Can't go wrong with Kerry Washington.
Award-winning actress Kerry Washington.
That's a good one. Okay. Ms. Turner.
Denzel Washington, because King Kong ain't got nothing on me.
I was waiting to get a Denzel. We've been waiting on a Denzel. I was like, somebody got to say Denzel. Somebody's got to say Denzel. Okay. Since I've taken you off track a little bit, I want Pastor Turner to be married. We're in the house of the Lord. We're in the pulpit, so I want to get in trouble. So I'm going to bring it back home. Memphis is a church community, all right? What is your favorite, I'm going to start with you, Ms. Gibson, right? What is your favorite praise and worship song? Or if you don't have a praise and worship song, what is your personal supplication routine, right? So if it's not Christianity, that's fine. We don't discriminate, but what's your personal supplication? But if you come to church, what's when you go to Niway Station and you talking to him or you talking to God, what's your song?
So I don't know if I have the title correct, but if it had not been for God by my side,
okay,
where would I be now?
All right. Ms. McKissick?
Amazing Grace.
Can't go wrong.
Amazing Grace.
Classic. Yep.
My son plays a beautiful version on his violin, and it
nice.
just soothes my spirit.
Okay, shout out to the son. Thank you. All right.
It's on my play now. I like Marvin Winans' Jesus Saves.
Wow. That's an old one, too, coming back a little bit. Yeah, I like that one.
I like My Soul Has Been Anchored, because my dad used to play it every day.
Somebody just, Pastor Turner, you might have to come up here and preach. Somebody getting it in. That could be the playlist this Sunday. I think you got your playlist this Sunday. Because Mississippi Boulevard certainly has an exceptional choir. Okay. Watch a few quick rapid fire, go around the circle on some substantive issues. 30 seconds to remember. Would you support forming a metro government? Ms. McKissick.
I believe that's something that eventually, to be most impactful for our community to grow, that's something that we need to work toward, but it has to be collaboration and fair collaboration on all parties involved.
Okay. Ms. Turner.
So I would support a metropolitan government if Memphis was treated fairly. Because what we see is that if you're in Germantown, Bartlett, or one of the suburbs, you can vote on the metro mayor, but we can't vote on the mayor of Germantown or Bartlett. So there seems to be an inequity there. And so if we could do it fairly and equitably, I would support it.
Okay. Mr. Young.
I support it in principle, but I would spend no time as mayor advocating for it because I don't think it's necessary in order for us to thrive. I think that the city has direct responsibilities and the county has direct responsibilities, and while there may be some limited savings, we can be efficient with the structure we have if we have the right people in the roles.
Okay. Mr. Gibson.
So interestingly enough, I had an opportunity back last time this subject was brought to the public to serve on that consolidated commission. It didn't get very far because of the school situation. Nobody wanted to combine the schools. I do support it, and I do think there's opportunity for efficiency to be held. If it was not for the current state of mind of our politicians wanting to continue to operate in a silo and point fingers at others versus actually coming to the table and doing the work together to create that equity, to create that accountability, I don't see it happening without consolidation. So yes, I would support consolidation, and I would advocate for consolidation.
Okay. Another quick one. Do you support or oppose the decriminalization of marijuana?
That mean?
Ms. Turner, yep.
I would say yes. People are now making money off what they were putting folks in jail for 10, 15 years ago. It is a travesty and a shame. And now these individuals have records and they have all the issues that have come about because of those convictions. So I would support decriminalization of marijuana. I think our officers could be pursuing other more important issues in our community as far as it relates to crime than tracing people for bags of marijuana.
Okay. Mr. Young?
Yes, I would support decriminalization. I think that, it's had a tremendous impact on our economy. There are so many people that are looking to get employed that can't get a job but for a marijuana test. And these are folks that are employable, and if they lived in another state, they could have a business selling marijuana. And so we have to think about the new age and the new day, and I think it's important to decriminalize marijuana for our economy.
Okay. Mr. Gibson?
Yes, I would. Unfortunately, we have missed so many opportunities from being behind the eight ball. I remember as 2003 came about, and we finally got the opportunity here in the state of Tennessee to get into the lottery game. And I was blessed in order to be able to get the contract to print the lottery tickets for the state of Tennessee. That was prohibited for a long time. Gaming was prohibited for a long time. Mississippi and Arkansas has taken those revenues that we ought to have here in Memphis. I don't want to see another piece of revenue be missed out from a long-term perspective the way we're missing out on it currently to Mississippi and Arkansas around marijuana. So yes, I would support it 100% and think we need to move expeditiously in approving that law.
Ms. McKissick?
I would also move to decriminalize it. I think we've got so many more serious problems, and all across the country, marijuana has been decriminalized. People are making money off of it, and we need to focus on more serious issues.
Thank you. Thank you. So this one I'm going to give you guys, this is unusual. I'm going to give you guys 30 seconds to think about this question before you answer it. I'm going to start the clock at 30. So I'm going to give you to 2:05. I want each of you to tell me one thing that you admire about your other candidates. So I'm going to give you 30 seconds to 2:05, and then we're going to start with you, Mr. Young. Tell me something that you admire about each of these other candidates on stage.
Where's the Jeopardy music?
Oh, exactly. Need some music.
Me first?
Yeah, you want to kick off? Go ahead. Each one.
All right, Mr. J.W. Gibson, his business acumen, had an opportunity to work with him pretty closely on a lot of projects in the past. He's a smart businessman. For Michelle, just her poise. She carries herself very well, strong speaker, and she's very poised. And Van, just his commitment. He does a lot in with the NAACP and the work that he does, so he's a committed guy.
All right, good stuff. Mr. Gibson.
So, Michelle, I really do like the fact that she was on TV journalist. She carries that so well still to this very day. So that's the thing that I really appreciate about her. Van Turner, Van is he's one of the smartest lawyers that I know. Paul Young, his tenacity, his hunger, his ability to dream. So I got 3 things that I like about Paul.
Thank you. Ms. McKissick.
JW, he's very kind. We actually met for lunch before I announced that I was running for mayor, and he took the time to spend that time with me and offer his perspective, so thank you for that. For Van, I love the work that you have done with Tyree Nichols' family, and the support that you provided with them is outstanding. And then Paul, I just believe that you are passionate about downtown Memphis, and I see your beautiful family, so I really enjoy that.
Okay, really nice moment. Appreciate that, you guys. So we want to make sure we're supporting each other and staying positive here.
You want me to go?
Say again?
I got some nice things to say, too.
Do I have something? Oh, I'm sorry. You haven't gone yet? I'm messing up. Go, Van. I'm sorry. I was going to skip Van. My bad. He kept me accountable. Go ahead. Jump in there, Van. I'm sorry.
So I'll start with JW. I think it's phenomenal that you have an individual who has been able to start 3 businesses from the ground up and have those businesses be so successful. Is really an example that our young people should follow with Michelle. As others have stated, I think she is poised, but she leans into the fact that she's been a mother and able to do so many things. Oftentimes, we haven't seen women in leadership, and we should have more women in leadership roles. And I think that she is an example of why we need that. And for Paul, for a long time, Mr. Lipscomb was known as the guru for making sure that we urban plan correctly and we see Memphis as it looks 10 or 20 years from now. Paul has been a wonderful extension of what the vision of Memphis will look like. He's not operating in the here and now. He's looking at Memphis for what it would look like 10, 15, 20 years down the road, and I think that's so important.
Thank you. And I apologize for missing you. Thank you, Mr. Turner. Very good comments across the board. Yeah, these are all great comments. Absolutely. So last one, this is, we'll give everybody a minute to answer this question, and so I'll set the framing. As you all want to, imagine yourself, you are mayor now. You are a month into your term. You are in another city. Let's call it Council for Great City Mayors or somewhere else, and you are on a national broadcast spotlighting Memphis. I want you to answer this question in that context as a person who is a leader of the city of Memphis. What is one memory or one element of Memphis that makes you the most proud? What is the thing that makes you proud of this city? Mr. Gibson.
So it would be the Southern hospitality, the respect, the kindness of the individual Memphians that live and work and play in the city. Our ability to give of ourselves for the betterment of others around us is what really, really makes me that Memphian that can travel the world and be proud.
Thank you. Ms. McKissick?
Our sense of community. When we went through a really dark period at the beginning of this year, and there were reports all over the world. I did reports for BBC, CNN International, and they thought that Memphis would go up in flames, go up in smoke. But we didn't do that. We came together as a community, we prayed, and I believe that is our strong suit for this community. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Turner?
So we had an opportunity during MLK 50 for us to be a city where we have another black eye, or for us to rise above our challenges, and Memphis rose above that particular challenge. We all know what happened on April 4th, 1968, and here we were in 2018, 50 years down the road, and the question was, where do we go from here? And I think we go higher, we go stronger, and we go better. And you saw that. And if you think about it, this was the last time we saw John Lewis in person. This was the last time we probably heard from Jesse Jackson as leader of PUSH, Rainbow PUSH Coalition. So all those great leaders convened once again to sort of pass the torch to the new generation of leadership. And I think that was just a monumental moment for us here in Memphis for MLK 50.
Thank you.
Yeah, when you think about one event, I just reflect on this past Juneteenth. I went to about 7 events all across our city, and it was just a beautiful sight. And the thing that I want people to take away about our city is that we have an intangible factor that you can't even put your finger on it when you come. It's just a feeling that you have when you interact with the people. I call it the soul of the city. It's something that other cities can't replicate. They can't out-swag Memphis. They can't out-cool Memphis. We just have a vibe that, you know, it's special. It's special, and we have to find a way to continue to invest in that and let that be our calling card for the rest of the world.
Thank you, thank you. And those are all things that we can all be a proud of across the board. So we'll get into our third of our 4 kind of topic areas, kind of more back our substantive questions. So back to our kind of minute and a half normal standard rules. So under the area of economic development, over the past decade, wage growth in Davidson, Hamilton, and Knox County has outpaced Shelby County on average by about 15%. And Shelby County has the lowest businesses per 1,000 citizens number of those 4 areas, while at the same time, we have 4 times as many, nearly 4 times as many pilots, which are payments in lieu of taxes, incentives, as those 3 counties combined. Are pilots the right strategy to spur wage and business growth, but it needs more time? Or do you propose another strategy that would be more effective to spur both wage and business growth?
I believe investment in small business. That is the path forward because we have to spread the wealth more here in Memphis. We hear about all the tax incentives for larger corporations, but in any community, small businesses, they are the ones that hire folks right in their own neighborhoods. Even people who have past records of incarceration, they know these people. They're their cousins. They know them. And so I believe that is a big aspect of it. And I met a small business owner. They're about to open up in about a month downtown. I just literally was walking down the street and saw the coming soon sign. So I walked over to her, and it was 2 sisters, and the Archer sisters, and they said that they were so happy that they were being invested in as a small business. And they were selling feminist T-shirts and products of that nature. Small business owners that I speak to all across Memphis as I've been going into various communities, they need support. They need so much more support, and not just technical support. They need to be invested in. We need to put more money into small businesses. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Turner?
So I think with our pilot program, we have to use it because we have no other way to grant incentives, and we are now competing with DeSoto County and Arkansas. And so in order for us to be competitive, to attract businesses here to this community, we have to have some type of incentive program. And the state is not our friend. They've really gone about dismantling all the other incentives that we would have or could have. And that's something that we have to work through, and I see Representative Hardaway here with us. But what I would like to say is that we should take pilots and put those into a situation where we can have micro pilots. That means that for other small businesses and for minority and women-owned businesses, they get an incentive as well, just like our big corporations do. This will promote small businesses, and I think it will spur growth of small businesses. Small businesses, as what's been stated, is the lifeblood of our community and of America. And so we have to do more to support them, along with how we're supporting big businesses. And finally, we have a chance and a lifetime here, something we hadn't seen since FedEx moved here in 1973, 50 years ago. The Blue Oval opportunity cannot pass us by. We need to embrace that opportunity, and we need to be working to make sure that there are subsidiary companies and there are other opportunities which will flourish from Blue Oval. What we recognize as 40 from here to Jackson, Tennessee, won't look the same 10 years from now. So we have to have an incentive program to take advantage of that blue oval opportunity.
Thank you. Mr. Young.
Yeah, I believe that pilots are an important part of the equation because it's our only tool that we use to compete. And the reality is, if we don't give an economic incentive, another community will. And we're not just competing with Mississippi and Arkansas, we're competing with metropolitan areas all across this country. And we have to have tools that incentivize those businesses to be here. Well, what we must do is make sure that those tools are bringing the public good that we want. If we're trying to grow income, we need to adjust the level of wages that they must pay in order to receive our incentives. And so we look at our tool and we fine tune it such that we get the results that we need. We also have to think about how can we lean into our strengths. I often give the stat that says that Memphis has more female and black tech talent per capita than any city in the country. That means that's a competitive advantage. That means that we should be reaching out to Google, Microsoft, Amazon, all of these companies that say that diversity is who they are, will come walk it like you talk it. Because in Memphis, we have that naturally. And we take proceeds from our pilot programs and our other incentives like we do at Downtown Memphis Commission, and we invest them in the small businesses. So when you see small businesses locating in downtown Memphis, they are being incentivized by the fees that are being paid from the pilots. So it's all connected. And we just have to make sure that we're connecting it from our policy perspective.
Mr. Gibson.
I have to say, with all due respect, it's one thing to be elected official or bureaucrat that sits and shoot out little, what's the word I'm looking for, little pilot shots about what could be. It's another thing to actually be a business owner out there every day, beating the pavement, trying to come up with the right ideal, the right approach to growing your business. I know your question was around pilot, but when we talk about economic development for small business, these people don't have a clue, with all due respect. When we talk about pilots, yeah, pilots might be a very important tool to be used, but it's not being used properly here in Memphis. And if you're not using it properly, you ought not be using it. Nashville, Chattanooga, and Knoxville, all, as you alluded to, Mr. Strong, offer out tremendously fewer pilots than Memphis do, and they're growing more expeditious than we are. It's our process. It's how we go about doing business here in Memphis. We have got to be more accountable. We have got to hold our corporate citizens' feet to the fire. When they sign off on those pilots agreements, we have got to ensure that they do what they say they want to do. If they don't, there's a penalty to pay. They can't just be allowed to walk away and do nothing. So let's get real about economic development. Let's get real about the tools that we have available to us, and let's really step forward.
Thank you. So all of you alluded this into your previous answer, but to be more specific, currently the Memphis Chamber has its 3 growth priorities, and one that mentions diverse businesses. Shelby County government has a list of its target businesses. We alluded to Blue Oval, but at current, it seems that many of those other companies that are investing are north of Shelby County in some of our surrounding counties, but not actually in Shelby. So what industries will Memphis focus on under your leadership? What industries specifically do you believe Memphis should go after? And Ms. McKissick, I'm sorry. You were next.
It's hard to keep track. Industry, we have a lot of wonderful industry here in Memphis, but I think one that's missing, kind of flying underneath the radar, is our healthcare. And we are really, we are the capital of certainly the Mid-South. And with the Regional Medical Center, we serve this entire tri-state area and then some up into the Blue Hill, Missouri as well. So I believe we need to invest into our healthcare. Something that I was a part of creating was Medical District High School in my district as a school board member. And right there, starting with training, while students are still in high school, where they can get admitted to this high school and also be admitted into the nursing program at the same time. There's a shortage of nurses. So I think we have to be forward thinking in terms of how can we bolster what's already happening here. We have Smith & Nephew, so many other wonderful medical companies here, but to help that grow, but really focus on our regional medical center and making sure that we're serving all the community in not only Memphis, but greater Memphis and the Mid-South.
Thank you. Mr. Turner.
I think that's correct. With health, we are a hub of health in our community. You have Regional 1, Methodist, St. Francis, and Baptist. We have the medical school right here in the heart of the city. We have to make sure that our young people are picking the low-hanging fruit. That's low-hanging fruit. Nursing certifications, all these other certifications are some things that can be made available to them before or while they or after they walk across their graduation stage. I would say tech logistics. You got Blvd down the street. We've already heard that we are a tech hub. We have to merge the two and take advantage of what's already here. FedEx has been here for 50 years. Blvd is right down the street. We need to lean into what's already here, tech logistics. And finally, I would say our arts and entertainment and culture. We have Stacks, we have Beale Street, we're the home of the blues. All this culture and all this history of music that emanates from Memphis, but the African American Music Museum is in Nashville. But all this music came out of Beale Street by way of the Mississippi Delta. And so we have to lean into what our strengths are. We're not utilizing what we already have in this community. Stacks, Beale Street, Elvis Presley, all of these things could be utilized more in our community to further along what we need to have here in the city of Memphis. I was at Erykah Badu last night, and while waiting on Miss Badu to take the stage, I looked over at the back and we saw all the tech operators there. These are jobs and these are well-paying jobs, and we have to make sure our young people are taking advantage.
Thank you. Mr. Young.
Yeah, I would say medical device manufacturing is something that we're already doing, and it leverages our existing stance in logistics. Advanced manufacturing, robotics. We talked about Blue Oval City and how it's going to have an impact on this region. There's no reason that this region shouldn't be the hub for innovation around autonomous vehicles and electrification of our grid, so that we are making sure that we are an example to the whole world around EV vehicles, since we have a $5.6 billion state-of-the-art facility right down the street. And lastly, I'll say the entertainment industry, the arts and culture, the thing that's made Memphis special for the last 60, 70 years. We've done a great job of respecting Elvis and Stax and all the things, the contributions from the past, but what about the future? We have some amazing talent that is bearing the Memphis brand all across the world, and we must continue to invest and build up that industry in our community.
Thank you. Mr. Gibson?
So healthcare was back 33 years ago when I first got into the business, the #1 revenue producing industry. That's why I got into distributing medical supplies 33 years ago. Today, if I had to focus, it would be a toss-up between advanced technology and the music industry. I have Memphis music industry as one of my 6 platform positions in this campaign. As you heard people talk about here today, the music industry, the history of Memphis music is so rich. Unfortunately, all you hear is talk about historically what Memphis music used to be about. You don't hear a whole lot of talk today about how we can take that industry and take it to a different level. That's one of the 6 platform positions. I think there's tremendous opportunities that we're going to take advantage of. I tried to do that by operating the New Daisy on Beale Street. We were very successful for the 4 years that I operated that facility. Today it sits closed. Nothing is happening there. You got nothing happening there, really. So when we have these opportunities, we got to take advantage of these opportunities, and we got to be committed to ensuring, again, as you hear a lot of people talk about, the small businesses being supported and given that support from city administration. It's not happening, hasn't happened in years, and we need to be more about giving that support to the local small business in the music and cultural arts arena.
Thank you. certainly have opportunities, but we definitely need to be about the business of being direct. This is what we are and going after it. And so all of you alluded to that. So we've talked about how do we incentivize companies and what companies should you go after, but you don't grow industry in a place without your most important resource, which is people. So you got to have talent to run these businesses, right? It's a key to growth. And we're talking about attracting businesses into Memphis, but let's talk about some homegrown talent. So recent census reporting shows that even as employment rates go up, there's a decline of black men in the workforce. Some estimates say over 3,000 men are currently missing in the workforce here locally, especially in management jobs and managerial jobs. And there's a well-documented brain drain here in Memphis where we lose our own homegrown talent, right? I can speak to this personally because, as many people know, lived away and come back. And so I've known many people that have come back home, me, my younger brother, classmates of mine, that come back home and don't find an industry or a city that's receptive to you returning back home, no matter how talented you are. And I see some nods and some people in the audience that know that's the case, right? So what will you do to reverse this trend and keep our homegrown talent here in Memphis? Mr. Turner.
So I think that starts really in our middle and high schools, and we have to promote Memphis. I mean, I fell in love with Memphis when I was young. I knew that this would be a place that I always wanted to come back to eventually. I left and I came back. And so we have to love ourselves, and we have to make sure that we are promoting Memphis. Yes, we're going through a tough time. Yes, we need to address infrastructure and crime, but Memphis is worth coming back to. Memphis is worth saving. Don't forget about us. Come back to us and help us resolve the problems that you see. I think next, once we do that, we have to put our money where our mouths are. We have to offer incentive packages and make sure that those packages are attractive for these young people to come back home. We're competing with Atlanta. We're competing with Chicago. We're competing with DC Metro, Dallas. And so what are we going to put on the table to have them come home? Their mother and father, their brothers and sisters are here. They want to come home. We have to make it easy for them to get back home. So in addition to offering those kinds of incentives and supporting those kinds of incentives, what else are we doing about housing and family care? Affordable child care is a huge issue. So we have to do what we can from a city perspective to make sure we're supporting the private industry as they work to bring our young people back. Then we got to lean in on our business guys. When we walk into a business room, it shouldn't just be all white men. We need to diversify that room, and we need to make sure that they are partnering with us.
Yeah, so when we talk about how do we keep our youth and our young people here and making them want to choose Memphis, we got to do two things. One, we have to skill up for the jobs of the future. And so that means working with our schools, working with our young people to make sure that they have training opportunities for all of those jobs that I talked about in the last question. The second part of the equation, and equally important, if not more important, is investing in the cool. Investing in the thing that make your city cool. Because when young people are choosing cities like Austin and Nashville, they're going there before they even find a job. They're just going because they like the city, because they think it's cool. We have to invest in the things that make Memphis cool. That's why I'm big on arts and culture, because like I said, they're the ambassadors, but they're also the ones that make our city have that vibe that makes us special. So our small businesses and entrepreneurs, those restaurateurs, those are the amenities that people are coming for. And we have to find resources for them because that's part of our broader recruitment strategy.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Gibson?
Workforce development. Can't say it enough. Workforce development is key to not only maintaining but bringing back our kids who are leaving us in a rapid pace. For whatever reason, our current administration decided to get out of the workforce development business. Approximately 8 years ago, I was asked to chair WIN, which is Workforce Investment Network. This was back during the day when we were sending money back to Nashville because we weren't utilizing the funds, so we had to return them. We stepped up and we made WIN more efficient and more effective, a lot more user-friendly to the non-for-profit organizations that were doing the work here in Memphis. That's gone away as we talk about trying to be brilliant at the basics. In order for us to fill these 15,000 jobs that are available making decent living wage, we got to train people. There's an opportunity for us to go back into the school systems with CCTE to partner, to collaborate around how we create training programs that can certify these high school kids to have jobs from day one once they graduate from high school. Workforce development is key to preparing our future. If we don't get on board with that, we're going to continue to miss our kids as they're waving goodbye to us, going to other areas where there's more opportunities.
Thank you. Ms. McKissick?
Corey, I'm so glad that you brought this up. I've been waiting for this, to speak to it, that we have got to get back into the business of caring about our young people. The City of Memphis, right now, their Youth Services Department says that they, last year, supported 1,500 students. Well, there are 110,000 students in our public school system in Memphis Shelby County Schools. And not all of them are the ones who have the ability to go away and to come back. I recognize that. That's why I've always worked to be a part of the solution and sending my children to public schools here in this community, because I wanted to bring middle-class perspective to those who don't have access to that. We need to provide internships and exposure. It's not just about the academics and the workforce. If we do that, do our job with that end, but there's so many other things that they're not getting. I grew up with Liberty Land. I grew up with the Venture River. There was something to do. They feel like they've got nothing to do and nowhere to go. The fact that we're running off to Little Rock to go there to their amusement park, or Nashville Shores up in Nashville, we're Memphis. We should be having these types of entertainment opportunities for our young people. So one of the first things I would want to do is start an internship program where we hire 5,000 students just to work within the departments of the City of Memphis. I know it works because we did it with Memphis Shelby County Schools. We hired 1,000 of our own students, and we gave them training throughout various departments. We have to believe in our children again. And the last thing before I go, the Memphis Zoo needs to reopen free access to the zoo for spring break for our students. The only week of the year where MSCS students are not allowed to go to the zoo is during their spring break.
So I'm going to point of privilege and ask this question. We've talked about hiring local, we've talked about workforce development and training, but I'll say again, there are some people who want to come back to Memphis, have all the skills and things they need to, but find businesses who are resistant to hiring them, right? Resistant to hiring them. They're hire the Ole Miss kid over the Lemoyne kid. So I'm gonna just say it real, okay? So 30 seconds, are each of you willing to engage the chamber and local businesses and corporations about their hiring practices to make sure that they are reflective of the city? So go in the same order. Are you willing to engage local businesses to make sure they're not only hiring our children and youth that are here, but also those that are coming home? Mr. Turner?
Yes, absolutely. We all should benefit from the wealth and the growth of Memphis, and not just some. That's the problem we're having now, poverty. Some communities look horrible and other communities are flourishing. Some communities get their lights back on in a day. Other communities is 5 days down the road. Some communities have schools which are pristine and beautiful, but if you walk into some of our other schools, you don't know what's going on. And so that all comes from leadership, and that all comes from the mayor's office. If the mayor is committed to this issue, he or she will put his foot down and make sure that our private businesses are getting on board and supporting our young people and supporting this community.
Yeah, absolutely ready and willing to engage the business community, and I want them to understand that this is an opportunity for them. They have concerns. They have concerns about crime. They have concerns about all the things happening, but the way you change it is to invest in our young people, invest in the ones that are still in high school, and invest in this next generation of talent that's potentially gone to college in the region or abroad and want to be back here. That is our growth strategy for our city, and we want our business leaders to be engaged in that.
Thank you, Mr. Young. Mr. Gibson?
Yes, I do. One of the things that I think we really need to do, and I said it earlier, and that's when it relates to the pilot program. We give out a ton of pilot programs, and there used to be clause within that agreement that required that the corporation receiving the subsidy hire a certain number. We're not holding their feet to the fire. So yes, I would, as mayor, be pushing that strongly, not only for those who are not receiving pilot programs, but most definitely those who are receiving those pilot subsidies. We will hold their feet to the fire around hiring and procurement opportunities.
Ms. McKissick?
Yes, I would work to make sure, because I'm in that situation. I've got 3 sons. I would love to have them come home. One of them went to the Naval Academy just like you, Corey, and I want to see him bring that talent back to Memphis. And I think we need to also just focus on maybe something like a new Memphis Junior, where we start working on our young people, even while they're definitely captive here underneath our thumb in our households, and show them the Memphis. Because the Memphis that you see as a young person, as an adult, they're not seeing that as a child. So I believe that we need to work with businesses and to say to, first of all, because most of our students are coming from our public schools, stop looking down upon the children in our public schools. They are smart and they can absolutely get the job done. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, last section. We've kind of talked around it in every subject matter, but this is super important. We're looking at the future. So education and youth, this is super important. So our community stands to lose millions each year in decreased earnings and increased spending on health, crime, and charitable donations as a result of high school dropout rates. So the questions, is the city doing enough to ensure quality education outcomes, and describe what you would do to make sure that Memphis stays active in education policy and practice?
Yeah, I would say the city certainly can be doing more, and that's something that I am looking to do. I firmly believe that the city mayor has to be lock in step with the superintendent and the school board on how we are engaging our young people. The reason we see our young people falling out of school and not completing school is because they're not engaged. The current curriculum isn't speaking to them. And so the question is, how are we going to direct our curriculum to teach to a new generation? What are the programs that we're going to engage them in? What are the things that we can be doing to support them outside of the school building? Because the reality is, if a young person goes into a classroom, that teacher has them for 7-8 hours, but once they leave that building, the teacher can't control anything that's happening. That's where the city needs to be stepping in. The city should be investing in the things that's going to bring a stronger child to the classroom. What supports do they need? What programs do they need in their zip code, in their community center, in their church that's right down the street? We should be funding those things so that there's a continuum of support for those young people.
Thank you. Mr. Gibson.
Yes, there's definitely an opportunity for us to do more in support financially of our kids around education. I personally, along with my wife, are very intimately involved with early childhood education. The city has made a commitment. The city has stepped up actually a little this year with its budgeting around pre-K. Yes, those dollars need to continue to flow. There's other opportunities. Again, I mentioned CCTE as an opportunity for us to go into the school systems and engage the kids from junior high to high school and preparing them with technical opportunities to get certified and walk away from school with a job. There's also opportunities for us to not only take those kids in school, we also need to be able to prepare them for after-school care. There's a tremendous amount of them that don't have anywhere to go after school. We have got to invest in child care, top-notch child care for our kids who are hungry after school, who have no good home to go to, no place that they can continue to learn. So not only investing in the curriculum during school, but also upscale professional child care is extremely important in our community. It's missing and we need it.
Thank you, Ms. Gibson. Ms. McKissick.
The city of Memphis has to do more. I'll tell you a quick story where Christmas before last, I went to go take a box of books and toys and a laptop, and I thought I was being really smart. I got a internet so they can have a hotspot. And I go to knock on the door. The mom comes to the door with her 4 kids, and they've all got coats on. And it was a light sweater kind of December Memphis day. Their power was out. So at that point, I had to pick up the phone. I'm calling all around to make sure that they got their power back on in time for Christmas to enjoy the goodies that I gave them. So that's what I'm talking about. The city of Memphis has to get back into the business. Just because they're no longer the funding body for the school district, it does not absolve them of caring about the children of this community. That's literally what is going to move us forward. Providing wraparound services, working with the district. The school district, if all it had to do was just focus just on academics, they would all turn out graduating from high school and going on. We need to do more than just focus on certifications. We need to show that we care about them, and we're going to invest in them meaningfully. It's wonderful to have backpack giveaways at the beginning of the school year, but there's so much more that you need to be doing throughout the school year to support families. Thank you.
So last question, education and youth. So you mentioned it earlier.
Did you want me to?
Get up and go off stage. I keep messing, man. I'm sorry, man.
Yes, sir. So to answer that question, in 2008, the city began an effort to not fund our school system. It led to a big lawsuit, and what ended up happening was the city pulled out of funding for the Memphis City schools. I was actually an attorney with the Memphis City schools at the time and watched that play out. That's led to about a $40 million deficit that we see happen, that we saw happen since that time. In 2015, as Mr. Gibson mentioned, we cut the benefits for our officers. So you don't fund our kids and you cut the pay for our officers. Now we're wondering what's going on in 2023 with crime and why things are out of control. It's 1, 2, 3. You saw it happening. We have to reinvest in our young people, and we have to focus in on 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade reading levels. When young people are not reading on grade level by 4th and 5th grade, they become truant, they drop out, and they enter into a life that we don't want them to enter into. And so we have to make sure that we're reinforcing as a city reading levels to make sure that at our community centers, through the work of the Boys and Girls Club, MAMS, Streets, other nonprofit organizations, we are reinforcing reading. It all starts with reading. If the young person can't read, they don't know what's going on in school, and they can't understand what's happening. That's where the city could play a major role.
Thank you, Mr. Turner. And I apologize. When I was party chair, I could always call Van Turner, and I'm cutting him off right now, so I apologize about that. He knows, charged to my head, and I ain't ate lunch, but here we go. So going to our last question, and Ms. McKissick mentioned this earlier. Who remembers Liberty Land? So for y'all around my age, I remember I was in high school, and then I was a freshman, and then like the little juniors, they had little Geo Metros, the little Saturns, they had their little car, their little pager, because they all had little jobs at Liberty Land. So I was like, I'm gonna give me a job at Liberty Land, because that's where you're supposed to be during the summertime, right? So you had your little car, your little thing, professional, your little briefcase and everything. Well, obviously we don't have Liberty Land anymore, right? And we have a lot of disconnected youth in that age range, 16 to 24, right? They're not active involved in school or in work. Feeds the prison pipeline, you see what's going on, and also feeds jobs lost because those jobs lead to future jobs. And so give me some specific things that you would do to engage those opportunity youth, 16 to 24, that age range. Mr. Gibson.
Again, I point back to workforce development. I think that's one of the most solid answers that has been overlooked for multiple years. If we're capable of training our youth, we can provide them with something to do. They're not just looking for fun and games. It's one thing to go to Liberty Land and have fun, but these kids really want jobs. They want to work, but they aren't being prepared to work. There's jobs out there, they aren't trained to get them. I don't know how we're gonna take advantage truly of what the needs are for Blue Oval when we're not investing in workforce development. That's the key. That's what I would promote, number one.
Ms. McKissick?
You asked for a specific suggestion. An idea that I have is that, you may know 65% of African American children don't know how to swim in this city. And there was a tragedy that happened some years ago when my children at Downtown Elementary, where 2 of the students there drowned one summer. And I made it my mission, working with another gentleman, Anthony Norris, we worked toward bringing water safety classes to every student in that school at the YMCA across the street. I would love to see the City of Memphis partner with the YMCA, getting investment from the private sector so that we can provide swimming lessons and water safety lessons throughout the school year at our various YMCAs. We can bus them there after school, whatever the case may be. And then some of those students will be actually good enough to get lifeguard training. And so then they can provide the lifeguards so that we can open up more of our community center pools, which are closed because we don't have enough lifeguards to man those pools. I know this works. I put my own children through it, my sons. And it actually was a lifeline for them during the pandemic because, gyms were one of the first places to reopen up. And they had a job. And there's just something cool about being a lifeguard. But we're also focusing on lives, saving lives, giving children opportunities to do, because I keep saying I'm all about the academics. If you were to have me as a parent, you would know how hard I am on my kids. But I also know there's got to be balance. We've got to invest in the whole child. That's what the City of Memphis has got to do. Thank you.
Ms. Turner?
So I was in D.C. maybe 2 years ago, and I was at a table with a group of young professionals, maybe 10 of them. And each of those young professionals, while we were in D.C., indicated that they got their start with the Marion Barry Summer Jobs Program. I've never seen it before. There was a doctor, there was a dentist, a lawyer, an educator, a business owner. They all got their start working in the Summer Jobs Program in D.C. that was promoted, that was fought for by Marion Barry. We need to put our young people to work here in this city. Workforce development, as Mr. Gibson stated. Every child, every young person that wants a job needs to have a job during the summer. We do it at the county commission. They do it at city council. We need to scale it up and expand it. And if our corporations are concerned about crime like they say they are, put the money in and hire our young people and allow our young people to work so they get the picture. They get the picture. You don't have to break in the car windows. You don't have to take cards. You don't have to do dirt in order to make a living. Let's let them see how it feels for an honest day's work, honest day's pay, and that starts something that will stick with them for a lifetime. Also, we saw the Wolf River Lodge now going to Jackson, Tennessee. We're missing those kinds of opportunities for our young people to thrive and to have fun.
Ms. Young?
Yeah, so I would say specifically we should invest in programs that are going to directly touch our youth. And I'll give you one example of a program I participated in, which is called My Brother's Keeper. A gentleman named Tim Harris, he worked through Havenview Middle School, and they took 20 of who were deemed to be the baddest kids in the school, and he had them once a week, every week, for an hour. And he worked with them in that classroom. And at the end of the year, they had a culminating ceremony over at Southwest on Elvis Presley. And at the ceremony, one of the teachers stood up and said, "This young man is not the same young man I had at the beginning of the year." Then the young man stood up and he said, "Well, the reason I changed my life is because Mr. Harris was consistent. Most of the time when people tell us to do something, they come tell us once and we never see them again. But Mr. Harris was there every week." And so what that says to me is, what if we had a Mr. Harris in every school in our city? That's game-changing for the future of our young people. The other thing specifically that I believe we should be investing in is for opportunities for young people to have fun. When I first came to Downtown Memphis Commission, one of the biggest issues was 15-year-olds on scooters late at night, zipping in and out of traffic. When the reality is, they don't have anything else to do. Young people are going to go find something fun, and so we should be investing in programs that are going to allow them to be kids and have fun and have a good time. Those are the types of things that you'll see from Paul Young as mayor.
Thank you. Thank you. So, real quick yes or no answer before we get to our closing statement. Start with you, Ms. McKissick. This is for everybody. Do you all plan on attending and participating in the People's Convention?
In light of the fact they were trying to narrow the pool and there are 19 candidates in the race, that was the primary focus of it, perhaps.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
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 Okay, all right. So we will move on to our closing statements. Each candidate has 2 minutes, and we will start with you, Mr. Turner.
Okay. You didn't leave me out this time.
I'm starting with you.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to speak here before you. I appreciate this opportunity because it's so critical here in this community that we select the next person to lead our city very carefully, and we want to make sure that the right person is in that role. I want to thank Pastor J. Lawrence Turner at the Mississippi Boulevard Church for opening up their doors once again. And I want to thank you for showing up, being present, and paying attention. As stated before, Memphis has a long path ahead of it, and we have many, many tough issues that we have to resolve. And you're going to need a leader with a proven track record of getting the tough jobs done. Whether you're dealing with crime, infrastructure, or jobs, you're going to have someone that's done it before. That's not just talking the talk, but someone who has put forth policy, someone who has been in the streets and the neighborhoods, and someone who has been in the courtrooms and down the legislative halls getting the tough jobs done. I talked about passing a note the last time to Tammy, and Tammy circled yes. And I'm asking you to circle yes to me being your next mayor. But I also want to leave you with this. Also in Scripture, it talks about Galilee and how Galilee was broken down. It was not thought of. It was a bad place. And the question was asked, what good could come out of Galilee? What good could come out of Galilee? We know that our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, came out of Galilee. They're asking the question now, Memphis, what good can come out of Memphis? What good could come out of Whitehaven? What good could come out of Hickory Hill? What good can come out of North Memphis? We can do it. We produce the best in this nation. We produce the best in this world. We'll do it again. We can solve crime. We can fix infrastructure, and we can make sure that we have job opportunities. I'm asking you to be your next mayor. Vote Van Turner for mayor on October 5. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you to 100 Black men and all of the partners for putting on this great event. I just want to impress upon this group and everybody that's listening that this is a very, very, very important election. You have 19 candidates that have put their hands up and said they want to be in this race. They want to be your mayor. And we have a decision to make, because whoever wins this race is going to drive the trajectory of our community for the next 10 to 15 years. It's the decisions that we make right now. I implore you to make the right decision. I believe I'm the best candidate in this race. I'm out here to prove it. I want you to look at my track record. I want you to vet me. In fact, vet all of us. Vet us all. Ask us the simple question, what have you done in your past that leads you to believe you're going to be able to do anything you're saying you're going to do? All of us want the same thing. We're good people. We want to see a safer community. We want to see crime go down. We want our kids to have better futures. But who can do it? Who's demonstrated the work? I'm not running in this race because I need a job. I'm not running this race because I want a title behind my name. I'm running in this race because I believe in Memphis, that I'm ready to do the work right now. I've been doing this work for the past 20 years. Every neighborhood in this community I've touched. I've been training for it. I'm ready for this job. I'm ready to take us to the next level. I represent this next generation of leadership. A generation that's been poured into by the older generation and still connected to the young. Our young people are crying out in our city. All the craziness we see out there, those are cries for help. They want somebody to listen. I hear them, and I'm ready to do the work. Last thing I'll say, pay attention to who's not here. Because you got some folk whose strategy is don't show up. Just run on your name. They know my name, so I don't have to talk. Pay attention to that. Because we got to move beyond politics as usual, Memphis. This is our time. Paul Young for mayor, Ed Young for Memphis.
Thank you. Mr. Gibson.
So I have really enjoyed myself today. Thank you all for showing up. To have you here present mean a lot, not only to me, but to all of us who are looking for your support. As you have heard, Memphis has some serious issues. These issues have been building over the years. They just didn't come about. We got the mistreating of our first responders that led to low morale, crime increase. We got the lack of support for our youth in education. We have seen people turn away from their position in educating our kids the way they should. Right now, there's an opportunity for you to stand up and be recognized. I'm going to be submitting to you within the first 100 days of my administration a contract with Memphians. That contract with Memphians will consist of 4 of my 6 platform positions. We will deal with crime, economic and workforce development, community development, and infrastructure. As you have seen, infrastructure is not being maintained. As you have seen, crime is not being catered to. There's an opportunity for us to do a lot more work together. I'm going to be calling on you because there's an opportunity for you, Memphis, to step up to the table, to become more responsive. And you become more responsive about voting. I'm going to ask you to step up and vote, make your voice heard. We got candidates who are jumping from one position to another. We got candidates who have lived outside of Memphis, spending their money, living outside of Memphis, and all of a sudden moving back to Memphis right before an election in order to run for office. We got to send a message loud and clear. Time is out for that. With your support, we're going to make a positive change for Memphis, for all Memphians.
Hello again, everyone. I'm Michelle McKissick, and I'm running to be your next mayor of Memphis. Memphis is at a very critical stage. We all know that. No matter what neighborhood you go into, everyone's concerned about their safety. When they go to pump their gas, they don't want to have to look over their shoulder constantly. We need a leader who has been there for Memphis since always. This is my hometown. I worked here for many years as a news anchor. I've been into every neighborhood and corner of this community. I'm hearing what the people are saying to me. It's time for a change. It's time for leadership that steps outside of the status quo, that cares about everyone in Memphis. There is no other agenda for me than to give back to this city. I've been serving on the school board since 2018. People have been seeking out my leadership. I serve at the state level. I serve at the national level to bring perspectives from a very multidisciplinary perspective. I serve on the MATA board, not just the Memphis Shelby County Schools Board, the Memphis Area Transit Authority. I've served on the Memphis Brooks Museum of Art Board. I serve on the Memphis Symphony Board. I care about so much in this community. I want to be your next mayor. I'm asking you to share with others, to visit michelleformemphis.com and read my whole city Memphis plan. It's much more than a 90-second soundbite. I go into great detail where I talk about so many areas that impact all of us here in Memphis. Memphis, it is time to believe bigger. It is time to do better by everyone in Memphis. Vote for Michelle McKissick for the next mayor of Memphis. Thank you.
So please, let's give all of our candidates a round of applause for their attendance today. And I'll say, when I was party chair supporting candidates, I was, hey, just get out there and get it done. And then I ran for office, which some of you are aware of, and I realized how lonely it can get. And running for office during a pandemic, that's a whole nother story. So I know how hard this is, and so they deserve that recognition. A few thanks before we close out. I want to thank the organization that helped support us. So Ben F. Jones chapter of the National Bar Association, the president's here. I want to thank the Black Clergy Collaborative for their support. I also want to thank 100 Black men for entrusting me and supporting all of us to put this event together. Also want to thank Pastor Turner and the staff of Mississippi Boulevard, who's done a professional job today. Please give this church and their staff for coming in on Saturday a round of applause. And so as everyone said, this is an important election. I implore all of you to do a few things. Continue to research your candidates, continue to show up, ask them questions, push them, make sure that they are battle tested and ready to take on this office because we have some serious issues. In addition to that, please engage those in your family and your community to also get out, get registered, and vote in this election. We want to make sure that this election is a representative of the citizens of this city and their choice. We also have some city council candidates who are here today. Appreciate you guys showing up. We're going to have a different city council and a different administration, and it's going to take all of you guys' voice. So thank you for being here today, and good luck and be safe getting home. Thank you.